everyone, welcome to the 𝓀𝓵𝓵 Show. Today I have with me Nick Poninski. Now, Nick is an author, an expert copywriter for course creators. I'm going to find out some things about how to write copy for courses, how to build email lists, and all the fun things that you can do around creating an online course, especially for selling it. So Nick, after university, traveled to Asia and lived 2 years as an expat teacher in South Korea, teaching, learning, communication. It was an eye-opening experience that sparked his curiosity in human psychology, what makes people tick and why they do what they do. This was a perfect match with his love for 20,000-word dissertations, and Nick was guided to his calling in life, which I believe is copywriting for courses. Today he's living his passion as a copywriter, writing the words that tell, sell, and complete to get you more leads, customers, sales, and profits. He has created the 5-minute client grabber course and written the top-rated book, Stop Struggling, Sell Your Course This Week, How to Write Words to Get Your Course Sold. So welcome to the show, Nick. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm curious about took you from there where you were to here today and why you're doing copywriting. So how did it all start? You mentioned something about going to South Korea and fell in love with communication, which I totally get, because the power of words, both written and spoken, are underrated by a lot of people. And when you get onto something like TikTok, sometimes the words aren't crafted, they're just sing to music. So we're going to learn about the power of words, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. So Nick, what sort of tipped you into being a copywriter and saying, I'm going to do this as a full-time business? Where was the inspiration or desperation? Either or, right? So you can have both. So how did you start?
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, thank you for that great introduction. That made me feel well emotional. Okay. So yeah, I used to live in South Korea, and I was doing that for 2 years. I was an English teacher as a foreign language. Loads of fun. After a couple of years, I realized, that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And then I came home and, thought, well, what can I do? And as you're saying, I've always enjoyed the psychology, why people do what they do. And I thought that HR would be a great fit for me, because there's a lot of, why do people go to work? Why do they commit? Why do they not commit? Why do they perform well? Why don't they perform well, right? And then, I was working in HR, but it wasn't providing as much of a spark as I was hoping. And I think, like a lot of people, like lockdown came, and, you have that moment where you stop and think, and you think to yourself, is this really what I'm looking for? And yeah, before you know it, I'd signed up for a course to be a copywriter, and yeah, here I am a year and a half later, and yeah, I'm now a full-time copywriter. Have been for a while. It's great fun. I love it. I love it so much.
Good. What's great about that in an online digital world that's connected globally through the internet and the web and amplified by social media, which connects all of us. Well, mostly some people aren't on Facebook, we know that. So, but that's okay. We'll let them stay there. That's fine. You can work from anywhere, really, couldn't you? You could do this from Lake Como. You could do this from Lisbon, long as you've got an internet connection.
Yes, got laptop, can work. It's great.
Was that part of the attraction as well of doing what you do today with the copywriting?
That kind of freedom was, I think that was like a secondary benefit. It wasn't as much of a benefit as you might think. Like it's a nice idea. But when you're first starting out, as I have been for a few months, well, for the first initial period, right? You don't have those clients, you don't have any retainers. Everything's a little bit up in the air, right? So the idea of working from anywhere is appealing, but the reality is that I spend 12 hours a day working. So yeah, I could work in Lake Como, but I would never see Lake Como. So Yeah,
so
it's not happened yet, but certainly in the future, it's certainly something that I want to do. Yes.
So the other thing that I'm intrigued by too is, did you start copywriting and looking for clients and working for clients while you had a full-time job? Or did you just go, I'm going to be a copywriter and trying to find them and hunt them down? And so how did you start?
A bit of both, actually. Yeah. So I had a full-time job, and that was in HR, and I was trying to transition into being a copywriter. So I was trying to find clients, and I must have sent out about 400 cold emails, and I'd never run a business before. I had no idea how to find clients, and I signed up for this course, and they talked about doing cold emails, so I tried that. I tried different ways of doing cold emails, never got a response. So yes, I tried while I had my full-time job, but my full-time job had a temporary contract. It came to an end at the certain period of time. I can't remember now when. And I didn't have any copywriting clients by then. But I think having that kind of deadline when I didn't want another job in HR, I wanted to be a copywriter. Like at that point, it was full on commitment, and that safety net had been pulled away because I didn't have, I had a full-time job. I had that safety net, but once it's been removed,
then
time to find copywriting clients.
Yeah. So this is where desperation starts to come in, isn't it?
Yes, 100%. That's when I started to get a little bit more creative, and that's when I ended up creating my method of getting clients, which is the 5-minute client grabber, which I've then turned into an online course now.
Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit. So can you give us an overview of how you get clients and a little bit about the course? So what are the steps that you now have developed for you to get clients? The 5 steps.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So the first thing to do is to realize that not everybody values copy, right? I'm sure you've seen plenty of websites where the copy is terrible. The emails, the marketing material, it's all doesn't convey any benefits. It doesn't talk about the customer's pain points. It could be better, if I can be polite about it. But not everyone values it, right? But there are some people who value it, and those are the people that you want to target as potential clients, because they're already, to me, these are people who are paying for advertisements, right? They want a great return on their investment from their advertising, and they're already paying for advertising. So the idea of paying for copy doesn't seem like a bizarre concept for them, right?
Right.
So those are the people that I target first.
Okay.
And then what I do is
so the people you target first are those that are already advertising or willing to spend money on advertising. That's the first step.
Yes.
Okay.
First step. And just to speed the things along, I basically look at Facebook and who is advertising on Facebook. And then I send them a video via Loom. I record myself on Loom, going through their website, talking about what works, what doesn't work, what could be improved, how it could be improved, why it's important to improve it. Then I have a call to action at the end and say, listen, if you want to work with me, great. And then I send them the video, and I get a good response rate, because it's very different than a cold email. Because a cold email, we get so many of them, you could just ignore it. But not many people would ignore somebody taking the time to go through their website and explaining what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. And that's actually a very good thing, because my marketing manager, who was a specialist in SEO initially, did he did an evaluation of my website, and then he said, and gave me a lot of tips for free. And then I went, well, let's put him on a project. So yes, so it's the free trial almost, isn't it, that you're offering?
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. And, I have fun doing it because I get to get across my personality. I get to smile, I get to put a little bit of humor in there, I can compliment them and it's all genuine. And, ultimately, if they choose to work with me, great. And if they don't, well, they've got the information on how to improve their coffee. So
I couldn't hear you then. I don't know what's going on. The sound's a little bit just breaking up. So just, can you restate what you just said?
That's not good. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yep.
Perfect.
We're going to be editing, so that's fine.
So ideally,
mm-hmm.
Ideally, they will hire me to write copy for them, but
right.
It's not necessarily going to be the case. Like you say, they may decide to fix it themselves.
Right. Okay.
Such as life.
And that is always the risk, isn't it? When you give something away for free, that will be used, and they won't take the next step, and that's fine. But reversing the risk by offering advice for free as a trial certainly is a very well-known marketing tactic, which works. So, all right. So once you've done that, so that's essentially the 5 steps, just put into a couple of steps, really. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's about it, really.
Okay.
Yeah. Send the email, chase them up if required.
Okay. Done. All right. So what made you sort of double down and focus on doing copy for online courses to sell them? Well, to sell online courses, isn't it? So what made you double down on that?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think that, being from a background where I was teaching, so, I already had that feel for, wanting to share information with people. I felt like that was a good match. And also, originally when I started getting into copywriting, I was listening to a lot of podcasts and, Amy Porterfield.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yes. For a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great, right? So yeah, the more I listen to her, the more she advocates for people building their own courses. I was like, right, well, I will be a copywriter for people who build their own courses, because there's a lot of people listening to Amy, taking her advice, wanting to build their courses, wanting to sell their courses.
Okay, so let's take a closer look then at what you see the top tips or steps to sell a course. So where do you start? People say, well, I want you to write copy to sell the course. Where do you start?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so yeah, there are different ways of looking at it, but ultimately the sales page for the course has to explain what the audience is going through, the bad feelings, the pain points, the terrible life that they're going through, exacerbate that pain and bring in the course as the solution. Make sure that the benefits of the course are very clear. A lot of the time people tend to talk about features or, what they'll get in the actual course. In module 1, you will learn this. It's all well and good doing that, and that information does need to be there, but they need to learn more about the benefits. So, say, for example, for my online course, I'm talking to people about getting a steady pipeline of high-paying clients. And it's easy to get these clients because you're only going to spend 5 minutes creating a video for them. You're going to save a lot of time because you're not having to create bespoke copy and send it over as like a free trial. And there's all sorts of other benefits. So I would say that a good sales page which communicates across the benefits of your course is essential stuff.
And
that would be
and there's a few different approaches, but long as they've got the basics and essentials written there. So testimonials could be one, but if you've only just started the course, you're not going to have those. There's going to be then you've got long copy, which is goes on for 15, 20 pages sometimes. Then you got medium, and then you got short copy. So what are you finding works best today? Because I've seen all of those, from very long to short. Now we've got the video sales page as well, which is important.
Yes.
Okay, so what type of sales page is working best in 2022?
Okay, so just to quickly circle back, when you were saying that if somebody has an online course and they're only starting out, they may not have testimonials. So there is a way around that. Say, for example, there will be scientific studies which proves that what you're advocating works, and you can use that. So, scientific studies, qualitative data, quantitative data.
Yeah.
If there are quotes from people with credibility, for example, if Amy Porterfield or yourself said this works, that's as and it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have had to done that course, but you will have done something similar, right?
Yeah. Okay, so in other words, you use the credibility of something else and someone else to help add credit. That sort of by association creates credibility for your course.
Exactly that. Yes.
Right.
Very succinct. I like that, Jeff.
I like that. Okay. So I think the thing as a copywriter, which we can have a quick chat about it now, is to take complexity and turn it into simplicity. And I am constantly trying to work out the power of getting people to read what you gave them as well. And there's a great there's a company that sold itself for over $500 million called Axios recently, that started in 2018, and their concept is they looked at the data and going, people are reading the headline, but they're not reading anything else. Even though I'm getting 1 million, 5 million views, no one's reading anything. In other words, the data looks good, but you're actually not getting the message and pulling people in. So they've created a copy model which can be used both as text. It's called Smart Brevity. There's a book out now about it. So, and in essence, their strategy is 3 steps to get you, and then there's lots of different ways to optimize. But number 1, write a great headline. We all know about that. Number 2, tell me something interesting, intriguing that I've never heard before. Line 2 after the headline. Third line, 1 paragraph, tell me why that matters. In other words, you give me the fact, why does that matter? And then they go into what's in the news. It's really, really clever. And it's called Smart Brevity model. So I went, you know what? I'm going to take this and try it out. So, yeah, so as you know, and I'm sure you are too, it's like learning the power of communication with words. And words are used in video. Words are used in podcast. Words are used in writing. So copy starts with the written word. You've got to craft it, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's interesting that the model that you're talking about that this company, I missed the name.
Axios.
But yeah, it's a very clever model. Axios, very clever model, because if you can get people's attention, if you can keep their attention, that is ultimately great copy. To get people to get on and then ride the slide and just keep reading. So yeah, to circle back when you asked what works in 2022, long copy, medium copy, short copy, I think you're absolutely right that it's headlines, but long copy will always sell because people will read, but only once they've figured out that information that's going to be there is relevant to them, is going to help them somehow, right? So yeah, ultimately it has to be scannable, because people will just flick through looking for the key information. And once they've decided it will or won't help them, that's when they'll decide to commit. And that's when they will read the long copy and they will get the message, because people are looking for answers to their problems. That's not going to change. People do read, books still sell.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I heard a great quote. I'm trying to remember who wrote it. It said, the job of the headline is to get people to read the first line. The job of the first line is to get people to read the second line. And the job of the second line is to get them to read the third line. So this is where the art and science of writing becomes a lot of fun. So And then you've got to stand back and going, okay, is my writing doing this? And sometimes it's good to give it to one of your colleagues, one of your team, going, okay, tell me if this has got your attention. So, yeah. So
yeah, 100%. You should always get someone else to read it, because you will not see the bias from what you've written.
Yeah.
I've got copywriting mentors. I got people who are way better than I am to make sure that what I write is better, because they're better at it than I am.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's I fell in love with words when I started my blog in 2009, and discovered that I did enjoy the craft. And when I started, I was crap, and there is still a long way to go. But when I start writing, my whole afternoon can disappear as I do research and craft it. And then the other thing I learned about books is that don't do your own editing. Give it to someone else, because, and I think Stephen King said it really well. He said, it's like killing your babies when you cull words, because you've created them. So if you delete them, it's like killing your babies. And so that's where you got to get an editor who's going to be brutal. And so,
yes.
Yeah. Especially writing long.
Yeah, it's 100% like what long copy, exactly that, because every word which doesn't add any value, which is boring, which is unnecessary, it will kill conversions. Like you said, that first line has to lead onto the second line, has to lead onto the third line, and if you've got pointless, useless words, you're losing sales.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next part. You've created the sales page. Now, here's the thing: you've got to get people to read it, and it's got to convert. So how do you get people to read it? Which comes down to advertising, or it could be an email list. Okay, so what's some of the top tactics you use to make sure that when you're advising your clients, because you're obviously advising them as well, aren't you, about advertising a bit, I would say. What's the top tips you say to,
yes,
how do we drive traffic to that sales page?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, ideally there would be a warm audience rather than a cold audience, which is, from advertising. Whereas a warm audience, perhaps they've followed them on social media for a while. They're already familiar with their messaging. Mm-hmm. They're already familiar, they've already got that know, like, trust principle applied. But if we're talking about cold audience as well, a bit of a mix, it's always a great idea to get them on an email list. And at that point, you can send them valuable, benefit-driven emails that talks to them about where they are in their life. You can start off and, ask them where they are in their life. What are they struggling with? Help them shine a light on the pain that they're in. And once they've realized that, then you can send them these follow-on emails and just say, following on from this, these are some really important things that, we could work with together to get you to a place where, dream life. So yeah, email marketing is certainly the way forward as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's still seen as old school by some, but email still works. The other thing that I'd be intrigued with and whether you've experimented with is, how do you see the role of SMS in sales copy? Because texting or SMS gets about a 98% open rate compared to email at about 20 to 30 if you're good. So have you had any experience with SMS copy and what works or not? And if you don't, that's fine, but it's something that, but people see SMS as intrusive. But if you've asked permission, they're given it, then that opens the door. And so have you had an experience with SMS copywriting marketing?
That's really, it's really interesting that some people might think that's intrusive. Like you say, you've provided the phone number. You've got to presume that they're going to contact you. Interesting. But no, Jeff,
You're breaking up a bit here. Don't know what's. Yeah. Don't know. You might be okay now.
Yeah, am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but anyway, well, I think we should be able to edit out most of the issues, but if I'll see how we go. But okay, so yeah, so they give permission as a text, right? So in terms of SMS, and it's something we're about to experiment with, because email is good. So they might go, I want email as well, but if they give you permission, in other words, they've got to give you it, and they've got to give you permission. So, and also the messaging via text is going to be a lot shorter than email copy. So we're about to experiment with them to see how that works in terms of offering a news service, monthly newsletter that we do for people that want to start a side hustle. So we're about to experiment with that. And I'm also reading, in terms of copywriting and tactics, is a book by 𝓀𝓵𝓵, who I've been reading since the early 90s, about different ways of upsells and cross sells and all sorts of things, which if they're already buying something, give them something more to buy. If they bought something this year, go back to them with something else in 3 months or next year. Because you're always leaving a lot on the table if you don't have if you're a loyal customer, they want to buy from you again. So, and Kevin Kelly said in a very well-known email, well, known within the industry, I suppose, is that you only need 1,000 true fans. So if you can get 1,000 true fans and they pay you $100 each a year, that's all you need. You don't need 1 million. You just need 1,000 true fans. So, yeah. So email's good. Now let's talk about one other thing that's important, which is the lead magnet. Take us through tell us about some lead magnets that you write copy for, and which ones are some of the top lead magnets that you'd recommend.
Okay, so for me, the lead magnet should solve a problem that your audience has, and so that it helps them see you as a problem solver, someone who helps them overcome some sort of problem that's going on in their life, and they will attach positive feelings towards you.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, something like instant satisfaction, perhaps templates, or something that gives them an easy win, or a guide, a challenge, perhaps.
Yep.
For me, I'm a big fan of the instant satisfaction. It gives them a nice, quick, easy win.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
So,
I think, I totally agree. I think that's a great tip. In other words, cheat sheets, templates. It could be a checklist. All of those. The other one that I think is worth checking, worth using as well, like ebooks, is like tried and proven, but a lot of people are moving now to video, short video. So it could be a 60-second video from you saying, these are the 5 top things you should be doing. I'm not going to waste your time. Here they are. Bang, 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 bang. Video, which could be part of your sales funnel. So, and that's the reality, I think, with, likes of Instagram Reels, TikTok, we're now moving to a very short attention economy. And that's what we're going to work out. Yes. The thing you said, and the thing you talked about was also the power of instant gratification. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where giving someone an ebook can be difficult because you're asking them to commit there, and they don't know if they know you, like you, or trust you. So an ebook can be a really big commitment for them. Whereas, as you say, a 20-second video, a cheat sheet, a template, these are quick wins, instant gratification.
Yep, exactly. So just before we wrap it up, Nick, what are some of the top tips that you would recommend anyone trying to create an online course that you think are just have to be done? And we've mentioned some of them, but maybe just quickly summarize what are the top tips if you're going to sell your online course?
First thing that I would say is make sure that there's an audience for it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that because you see an audience for it, there is definitely an audience for it. I think, we've all watched Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where people go on, these entrepreneurs with these wonderful ideas about products that they've spent years developing that will solve all these problems, and they're utter junk. You want to make sure that your course is not going to be something similar. You're investing time, money, and effort into building something that doesn't add any value to anyone.
Yep.
So that would be my first step as an overall look at online course creation.
Right.
After that, you need to understand your target audience. What are their pains that they're going through? What is the dream life that they want? And these are the two things that you need to talk to them about.
Right. Okay, that's
yeah.
I totally agree with you, and that's why sometimes here's the challenge with an online course, in that you can spend 2 or 3, 4 months developing it, and people go, "You're not helping me. I don't even know who's this for." So
yes,
that's a tough. It's because maybe the best way to do it is to create a mini course first, which could be a minimal viable product, and then build the longer course later once you've actually tested it with your audience and tested your marketing funnel as well. So, because when you think of an idea and think, okay, this is a problem for me, is it a problem for my potential audience? And then the audience goes, yawn, you wasted all this time. So I think, for maybe creating an online course, a short mini course. So your course that you've created, and also the book that you've written, how long is it in terms of time for people to commit to, in terms of, because a lot of people start courses but never finish them. So how long is your course? How many modules is it?
It's actually a relatively short course. It's I would say you could finish it in about an hour. It's not that, there's not that much to it, to be honest with you. Once you understand the basic principles of, I start with talking about why video outreach is so much better than cold email.
Yep.
And then I talk about where to find these people. And then I talk about what to talk to them about. And I think the key bit is to make sure that you've got a strong start and a strong finish.
Yep.
After that, there's not a lot else to know, really. So it's a relatively short course. Okay. Yeah.
And what price point is that, Nick? So that our audience has an idea.
So the course to help copywriters find clients, it doesn't cost thousands. It's $497, and ultimately, if you get one client off the back of it, it pays for itself immediately.
Right. Cool. That's awesome. And the book you wrote, which is Stop Struggling, Sell Your Course This Week. How many pages is that one?
It is about 32,000 words. I can't remember how many pages it is.
Well, my guess would be around. My guess would be around about 100 pages. Then.
Yes, give or take, I would say it's about 100 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other final tips to our audience, Nick, that you'd like to share in terms of copywriting and the importance for helping people sell their courses, or anything really?
Yeah. Okay. My favorite tip is always when you're talking about the course, if you're talking about whatever it is that you're talking about selling, put the benefit in there and then put it on the end of it so you're bringing the benefit to life for that person. What does it mean to them? How is it going to affect their life? So that you can, let's talk about, buy this book so that you can be smarter than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
rather than just buy this book, right? It brings it to life. So for me, so that you, those just three keywords there. When you're talking about benefits, bring them to life.
Yeah. So what you're saying really is, what's in it for me? That's it. Your audience. And if you get that nailed,
100%.
Yeah, if you get that nailed, then you're 80% there. So the 80-20 rule.
Yes. Yeah. 100% that, Jeff. It has to go back to the audience, has to go back to the reader. So, yeah.
Exactly. All right, Nick. Well, thank you very much for your time. We've had a few audio issues, but I think we'll be able to edit them out. That's okay. It happens because we live in a internet world that sometimes has its technical issues, but it's fine. All right, mate. Well, enjoy the rest of the evening. I know it's nearly 10 o'clock now, and it's maybe well past wine o'clock, but or gin o'clock, I'm not sure, or beer o'clock, or just go to sleep o'clock. I don't know. But thank you very much for sharing your insights and your wisdom. I always enjoy doing this so much. So thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.